wanted to ask you some thoughts on something not related to what we're going to talk about today, but the recent big thing in the media, violence against women perpetrated by men. You know, record number of female deaths this year at the hands of males. Pretty, horrible stuff. You've been following on that?
Literally, and this is the tale of the news cycle. Like, not the last 2 weeks, haven't been watching the news, but I've been aware that a few incidents happen I could see, but I have not followed it just because I've been so busy and I have not been following the news for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, fair. I mean, nothing wrong with not watching the news. Got any thoughts about it being a father of two young boys? And a father of a young girl as well.
Yeah. And for sure. And I don't like missing out on things like this. And because I like to be part of the public conversation and topical things. And so these days with the news cycle, like if you kind of miss a bit, you miss a lot of that. I feel like everyone's processing things and all together we kind of get to a place. I'm being very general about it. So I'm feeling I kind of missed that. And it's not that it's gone or anything. Anyway, for sure, like it's bad, And I think I like when things kind of come to the fray of this nature, comes forward in the conversation because you get experts coming out and in the interaction between pundits and people at the water cooler, like that's how we work out issues, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like I'd like to talk more about it. I'm glad you brought it up, but it's no good.
Well, I mean, yeah, like clearly not, right? It's awful stuff. But I tell you, when I follow this account. I think it's called Dangerously Female. Tima got me onto it. She's got their pink.
Yep.
It's a really cool shirt. I was like, that's a cool shirt. And she told me about it, and I started following them. And I'm pretty sure it's that account. They just they're like finger on the pulse when something goes down, like when there's a woman that's attacked or murdered by a male, they post about it straight away. Quite objective about it. They just go, this happened. And they're like, this is the, 24th woman that's died at the hands of a male this year. Yes. Last year's record was X. You're like, fuck, it's in your face,
Yep.
And I always read that and I'm like, damn, that's awful. And then I read the comments, and most of the comments, I find myself quite conflicted because the comments are like, where are the men? Why are the men not speaking up about this? Men, we need to do better, etc. And I'm like, yeah, fuck, we need to do something better.
Yes.
But I'm like, fuck, what am, like, as a man, what do you want me to say?
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you that, like, my son, like, I will do everything I can to make sure he grows up with a healthy respect for his female counterparts and, and all of that, and understands boundaries and violence and everything. But I'm like, but that's not going to play out for like 15 years. He's 3.
Yep.
Like, so what do I, and do you want me to say that in the comments? Like what, like it,
I know,
you feel you're like kind of bound. You're like, fuck, what's the thing here? And so I found that the narrative around it's been quite challenging to support, because I'm like, fuck, I don't know how to support this.
Feel the same way, man. And, you fucking jump straight into a tricky subject that I haven't quite figured out, myself. And everyone might not have, but I think what we can't do is just jump straight onto something and, like you get people who don't take a second to think about how to do it, which is what you're doing. And they will just jump onto, like a side or an opinion or something like that. I think we all need to pause and think, because just pushing energy in one direction might not help a solution. That's all. I'm not saying that it's bad to support something necessarily, but
no, but a sort of a wish without a plan of, well, this is what we do is kind of,
because I think things like that, and I'm really thinking on the fly here. It's like, awareness is good. So social media is very good at bringing awareness, but awareness quickly turns, like I just think that there needs to be a space where it kind of moves on into somewhere useful, a useful conversation. But the way that social media kind of works, and I include the news cycle because they're in social media too these days. They work on those platforms, and the news cycle's so short. You know, it just can turn a little bit like everyone's vying for the attention and stuff. And anyway, going back to the actual issue, it might just distract away from like a solution to the thing. And I guess it's really sad and shit that these things are happening, and those are the incidents of which are happening. But I guess how it led to happen isn't where the attention is at, you know, which is how did it come to be? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, like what's causing that?
What's causing that? And that's less popular to sit around and talk about necessarily. And I'm really...
Well, yeah, I guess it's multifaceted in a way. And I suppose you want to look for the easy culprit and be like, you know, men don't respect women enough, and that's why this is happening.
Yeah.
And that's like kind of clean.
Yeah.
Like, well, they don't, so we need to fix that. And it's like, oh, fuck, hang on. You know, obviously that's a huge part of it. Some men don't.
Yeah.
But you're like, man, this shit's got to be multifaceted.
Yeah.
Now, here was well, you go.
Oh, no, I was just going to talk about my actual thoughts on the thing, not just the exposing of the thing and the social media thing. Oh, no, like, look, yeah, it's multifaceted. It has to happen over time. It's part cultural. It's part systemic. It's part historical. Like, it's just come to be this way at this time, and it's no good. And we've got to reflect on like how that's happened. I think about like a fatherless generation. So we got a lot of men who are not growing up with good father figures or homes. I mean, at the moment, we've got loads of families, you know, divorces and marriages that last are at an all-time low ever. And that's not necessarily bad. It's just what it is. But what you have is men who are not part of a family and kids that are growing up under with no dad in the house. Statistics show, and this is going to that, what's his name? Richard, I can't remember this academic that wrote this book of Boys and Men that I was listening to the audiobook. He's saying how statistically boys end up worse in that situation in those families than girls do growing up without a father. And that ends up going into the education system. Boys aren't getting as... girls are outperforming boys academically, so men are actually kind of being a bit marginalised there. And I'm not making excuses for the men in these cases who are, you know, being violent, but I'm kind of just pointing to one aspect that, yeah, the men aren't fucking doing good enough, but like trying to figure out all of the socio and economic factors that have kind of come to it being a higher incidence of this happening right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think to that point, you like to have a conversation, we got to be able to separate, like, no one's trying to remove responsibility from anyone here.
Yeah.
But you got to be able to talk about what potentially causes some, so it's like, all right, well,
totally.
Like that acknowledged, yeah.
Yeah, we've got to look at what's going on with the dudes.
Well, I'll tell you,
a lot of frustrated men out there without purpose, potentially. You know, I think that's a big thing.
There was an article in the Sydney Morning Herald, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and it was just after Albo had that thing where he attended the rally, and that he attended a rally,
I
saw a protest,
a bit of that,
and that kind of, you know, there was a bit of a whatever, like he didn't come off very well out of that whole thing. But there was an article where this criminologist was talking about how we've been telling men just to do better for a long time, and it's clearly not working. And he's like, he's saying, like, what we need to look at is gambling, porn, alcoholism. These are the things, some of the things, I guess, that are contributing to this outcome. And he's like, so telling people to do better doesn't achieve anything, but addressing these things is taking active measures towards changing this occurrence. And it was the criminologist Michael Salter.
There you go.
And I was like, fuck, I think that's the guy from the gym.
He was all over the news last week.
Yeah.
He had several pieces in The Guardian. And
you weren't reading the news, bro?
No, I was talking directly to him.
Yeah, right.
Which is even better. And then, he was all over it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I was
had a-
actually chuffed to read that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, and it's just a snippet of the thing. I didn't, haven't gone into it too deep, but I'm like, that gives me something that I can attach to. That's something that's action. Okay, porn, alcohol, and gambling. Okay, yeah. Now you're making sense to me as like things that we can actually, like behaviors we can try to affect, right? Like, whatever. I can't affect them on a societal scale, but at least, with say people around me or my kids. But also great that there's someone that's like putting forward something that's actionable.
Yeah.
And I came and I was like, bro, did you write that? And he said, yeah, I did. And he was actually infuriated about it.
Oh, he's on a mission.
Yeah.
He's on a mission to take out. There's some systemic problems and there's some actual people in politics that are blocking progress.
Wow.
And he's on a mission to remove them.
Wow.
Hell yeah.
Well, I mean, you fucking two of those, right? Alcohol and gambling are huge dollar earners for the government.
Ridiculous.
And then, I mean, maybe not porn, but that's probably just a really difficult one to tackle, right? Like digital regulation. But yeah, for sure, there's got to be some very powerful forces that don't want to see those things get disrupted.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, when you mention those kind of key points, I think of, how can we restructure policy that just kind of helps? It's like going to the root of something so that it can change it. And then I always think of the family structure and, so that obviously it makes it easier because you usually want to make it easy to make the right decision so the policy can help diminish those vices, just simply put, but also from the individual operating inside, they also have somewhat of a responsibility. And if we can have better family structures, and I know this is a big if, that support bringing up good children, and we have a base with a good moral compass and stuff. And I guess I'm coming all the way back to say, what can you do and your kid and everything? And I think essentially and your friends and stuff like that, you're saying in your circle, that's the one thing that we can and should do. In my opinion, that's our one legacy, our one job for the next generation is we have to bring up the Leos and the Falcons to be like that because it's going to take time and they're going to be it's our job to do that and also to kind of affect the people directly around us, our adult friends and our circles, to also be good people, to be honest and honourable people that help it, like all that sort of stuff. I think that's really important. What's not is just like jumping onto something from a phone, and this and anything else as a broader comment about just pointing a finger and throwing mud at an issue. I can't stand it. That's why I can't stand, being on social media too much. Although I love reading the comments, I do. Yeah. Because the comments tell you more about how the mob's feeling, how the public's reacting to the actual post. But it's just a lot of not useful conversation. Or you've got those, what do you call them? Not keyboard warriors, but the virtue signalers. It's like, I just want to know that those virtual signalers are out there and they're actually out being good humans on the street. Because if you aren't, you can get fucked. That really shits me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I know what you mean, and I think I get the same kind of irritation, but I actually feel that the whole term virtue signal, I'm like, because to bring awareness to a thing, just has to be outcry.
Yeah.
And people have to signal virtues to say, this is something that I stand for. And
for sure.
And so in that, and I'm looking at, and I'm it's like woke. You know how woke, like the term woke is now used as a pejorative against like anyone that's trying to be progressive. Like if you're of the more conservative view, woke is like, how you insult someone that's trying to change things.
Yeah.
And it's become like, you don't want to be woke. Like that's what it's turned that thing into, right? It's like, you don't want to identify as a progressive now.
Yeah, like but woke is extreme left. It's extreme left.
Yeah.
To the point where they have blinkers and blinders on too far on the left, and they're also discriminatory on the far left.
Well, I would,
which I wouldn't say I am.
no, neither. But I
old
would
school
say,
left.
but it becomes the case that anyone that like, and it's like a common insult that will come from the right.
Yeah.
Will be that if you have any view that's somewhat left, that's woke.
Yeah, totally.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, whereas, I think it used to be a thing that was like, you're so far down that left-hand side of the spectrum that you're being an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, great. But so I feel like that the virtue signaling became a similar thing. I'm like, well, fuck, people need to speak up initially. There has to be this outcry to bring the awareness. And then hopefully from that's the start of
totally
some kind of process.
And like, I don't ever point out and say that person's a virtual signaler, by the way, because I see a comment and I don't actually know who that's coming from. You know, I don't know that person's not a good person on the street as well. However, just by the people that I see on the street, like I think it's a bit, I just don't see, I guess, that it's the amount of online outcry doesn't match the amount of online kindness that I see on the street or in, you know, and I guess I'm thinking about this right now, and maybe that's why I'm just like, it just seems like a lot there. I'm not condemning it, but I think we can agree there's a lot of folks out there who do virtual signal. Are you saying that there's like a disproportionate amount of like whatever abuse or criticism that's held online that wouldn't be? Are you saying that disparity, or? I guess I'm just saying that the gap between online opinions and personalities and real opinions, personalities and actions and what you do in your fucking life.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Whether you're you're critiquing people and you say damning shit to them that you'd never say to their face, or really great things in support of. I guess I'm just saying there's probably a lot of that is misaligned with, yes, actually I'm saying all those things, Dan. That's the person who I want to be, and that's okay. But are we doing that? Is the greater society also going and trying to live and walk that walk as well?
Yeah.
Because I think that's what we kind of need, that's all. We need a bit of that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the connotation with virtue signaling is that people just are signaling that thing, but not actually living it out. Like, which I would totally agree that is like, we don't need any more of that. Like, live by your words kind of thing. Yep. That your actions sort of.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But at the same time, and if I look at who was masterful in, I think, orchestrating some of this, is your man Jordan B. Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with his thing of like his critique of, say,
my man.
No, your man, as in of the people.
Your man.
You know, where he rips on, college students, and he's like, tidy up your own house, like make your bed or whatever, or fucking clean your room or some shit.
Yeah.
It was one of his 12 rules for life, which philosophically I get that point. Have your shit in order. But my counter thought to that is that, like university students are like old children, right? Like they're young adults.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have their life in order. They're like, they've literally come through a school system, been living at home, supported.
Yep.
And then maybe now they're just fucking figuring life out, living in a dorm or whatever, or probably at home. But they're often the only people in society that have the time and the bandwidth to think about and protest about such things.
Mm.
Whereas like young business owning dads like you and me are like, I don't have time. Like, I don't have time to go to a protest. I do.
And people much poorer than us too.
Yeah. Like, I do have time to do any of those things, of course. But I have other priorities that compete with that.
Mm.
So in a way, and I remember, my brother Abe's a big, staunch kind of advocate of that, is that like, well, those kids that are like becoming educated and learning things and actually want to have a voice, They play a really important role because they're the only ones that'll talk up.
Right.
I'm not going to go scream from the rooftops with a fucking flag, you know, or like, you know, my parents definitely aren't. And that's really the two generations.
Your uncle is.
Which one?
Ray.
Fuck, isn't he?
You know?
Yeah, but only now that he's retired. He wouldn't have done that when he was a busy film professional. You know what I mean?
Maybe, you know. I don't know. I don't know. Because I've been to protests before. I'm not someone who always goes to protests. I always think that I'd like to be that person. Do we have time? We probably do. I guess if it's important enough for us. But you're right. When you're in student mode, you're literally, you've flicked a switch where you're open to learning all the time, you know? As in, like, you're in a learning mode where you're just sucking things up and you do have time to think, don't you?
Yeah, and you got, like, I don't know, like, I've, you know, never been to uni, enlighten me, but, you know, you're sitting in lectures and talking about things deeply for hours and then studying, and you're studying things that are not, like, you know, you're an exception now because you're in the student process as well, right?
Mm.
But, like, I don't do anything. Like, my days are not filled with doing anything for the sake of it. Everything is done for an intentional outcome. Managing the business, accounting, learning more about marketing, doing the marketing, coaching, you know, all of that. Whereas I think for, like, if I look at from a really large, like, from a really wide angle view, a lot of what you see when someone goes to university to study, they're just doing a lot of stuff for the sake of learning, for the sake of knowledge. Like, what are you learning in your arts degree? I don't know. We fucking do everything. Cool. What are you going to do with that? Probably nothing. You know? But mad, like, great. Well, what's that do? It's just expanding your mind. It's taking you to different places. Yeah. You're exploring these things, and that's giving you a foundation of knowledge or experience.
But yeah, but for you, like, you've chosen this path also because it's aligned with, you know, what you think is good as well. And it is work, so you're doing it day to day, and you've got to kind of, you know, fulfill the momentum, the direction, and the wheel that's spinning for you there. But in a way, maybe to provide a counter argument, you're doing it for the sake of the good. You could go and probably get a different job and probably earn more money, which you would hate.
Fuck, you'd hope so.
You'd hope so. You know, but and I know, but I guess it's different for the sake as it is for doing it for a purpose.
Yeah, and I'm also not saying that like what I'm doing is any less noble. Yeah. Or that what they're doing is any more noble. Because you could look at that and be like, well, that's a fucking waste of time. You just went there for 4 years and what do you got to show for it? You know? Go and do something, man. Build a business, you know, have an impact. But, you know, so I think it's all great. Like it's all necessary.
Yep.
But I see them as like, they have time and kind of mental space to, you know, to get involved in shit. I'm in the fucking table tennis club, man. I'm really passionate about table tennis. Joey doesn't have time for table tennis.
You used to back in your attic when we used to fucking slug it out. But
watching Van Damme movies, table tennis, and fucking
nunchuck practice.
That's it. That's life.
And learning Warren G lyrics. Joe's always choked on his bottle. So fucking anyway, like we'll have to come back to the men issue later. But just on my observation at uni, so not everyone is like that, and actually, and it's probably unique to my campus and the demographic that's at my campus, which is, I don't know what the stats are, but it's got to be, there's a big international contingent, a lot of English as second language, like all through, and that's kind of also representative of Sydney's demographic, actually, because locally we have heaps of people from overseas. The numbers are quite high.
Yep.
I think because I was watching fucking, what's that news show? News Watch? Media Watch. Do you watch that?
Yeah, when I catch it. It's great.
I think there was someone on 2GB fucking having a go at the fact that I think housing or something like that, assistance housing is going to something like 25% of it is going to migrants.
Right.
something like that. And anyway, they looked at he was like, they looked at the demographic of Sydney, and it's like 40% of migrants here. Or it's like near 40% or 30-something% of migrants. Is just saying that it's actually representative of the fucking people that live in Australia.
Right.
And actually
par.
less, on par or just less.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a lot of migrants here. But, you know, what I feel is that most kids there, they're definitely not me. I went in there, I've got my mission, and I'm doing it for a specific purpose, and we've spoken about that. Most of them are doing it for work and job security and security. They're there to get a job, because if we go back to the old school, back to where the generation before us and our generation to an extent, and everything before that, it was get a job, go to uni, get a degree, get into uni, do school, get into uni, get a degree, get a good job.
Yeah.
And lots of people still think like that.
For sure.
Sure. And so they're there, and I'm just speaking to like,
the whole campus isn't fucking sitting around philosophizing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah. You all play hacky sack, right?
There
Everyone
is
gets
table
given a
tennis
hacky
there.
sack when you sign up.
They're all.
You get given long hair.
Yep.
And a hacky sack.
That's right. That's right. And if you've got deodorant, they'll fucking throw that in the bin.
It's a big no-no.
They're like, nah, we want you to fucking stink the whole lecture. Hey, they just stink. Like just young people in general.
Do they?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And people are always just like
Whiffy.
I'm just like in that classroom. You're in a jumper in the middle of autumn and you're studying for like 10 hours a day. Like, guys.
And you had a packet of noodles for lunch and 16
well, that's
beers
it
for
as well.
afternoon
That's
tea.
it. Yeah, it's what's coming out.
But yeah, and that makes sense. I don't imagine it's like,
Yeah.
But I think that university, because say, there's this thing you see in the States where colleges have been, there's been this huge movement, this anti-Israel movement.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that is media. Like some of it looks pretty absurd. I don't know how much is media blow up. I don't care to go too far into it. But you're like, there's people there, like that's where that movement has taken root. It's not really occurring as much in other places, but the college system is like, it's a breeding ground for that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I guess, that's what I was trying to get to say was that I think that you got different universities. Like there's so many universities worldwide, and I think you have different universities where I think that stuff definitely goes on. It's not happening at my campus.
Probably not happening at like Stanford or something.
Nor at my university. And I don't really know. But I feel like, and I don't know the university kind of scene, but in the same way that there are high schools, then you've got selective high schools and private schools. Like I think unis work a little bit like that. I feel like mine's very much in the what do you call them? Not STEM, the other one. There's a lot of health people at my university, but there's not a lot of tech at my university. And then you've got tech universities, and then I think you've got some that are way more science and or academic.
Yep.
And I think they happen at the academic where it's really ideas, they're ruminating over ideas. That tends to happen. I'm not really sure. But
yeah. Yeah, not to tar anyone with the one brush.
Nah, fucking do it.
But yeah, I think that's a cool conversation. The male thing, the DV thing. Yeah, I don't really have much more to say on it. I'm quite lost with it all. But I'm glad that like say we spoke about how it plays out. You get this outrage, and then people are out crying and be like, "This is fucked," and like. People start throwing, men do better. Whatever. People are just saying shit.
Yep.
You're like, yep, people are just searching, saying, and then the hope is that you get these experts in different fields related to that. They go, hey, I got something to say. I got an idea about this, and then they come to the forefront, and I feel like say with Michael, and I'm sure he's not the only one that's acting on this, but they get involved, and then hopefully
that's right.
Shit starts to change.
Yep. So that initial message is stop, and that's needed. Stop. Fuck. Okay, we all agree we need to stop, and then it's like, okay, how do we fix it?
Yeah.
You know, what do we do? And I think that definitely takes time. Anything of this nature that kind of raises in incidents will bring that up, and then it's like, how do we go on to fix it? Is what we want to watch and try and be a part of.
That's right.
But yeah, obviously we got to work on the guys. We got to work on the guys. You guys we're talking about.
Yeah, but it's the guys, but it's the whatever the things in the culture or the environment that are, like it's. I'm mindful of that, like, because that in a way that's like it's the guy's fault, and of course in that acute sense, yes, it is. Men committed those acts; it's their fault. But like, I think that's the thing.
No, what I'm saying is, it's not just the guy's fault, but what I'm saying is, it has to be a guy-centered approach to fixing it.
Yes.
As in, he is the conduit in which all these mistakes are enacting something physical and wrong. So it has to be centered from in the same way that like our health system that I'm learning now has a person-centered approach, whereas before it used to be a more injury-centered approach,
right?
Kind of biomedical. It's like, oh, that thing's broken. This is how we fix the broken thing, and this is how I prescribe to fix the broken thing. Whereas now they look more through the lens of the person. It's just that it's like, oh, all the things have to be attached through that guy.
Yeah,
and
I feel that.
Yeah, and there's lots of people involved and stuff like that. But anyway, we should actually fucking find someone to talk to. And hell,
I'm going to get Michael on the podcast.
Let's get them on the potty.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
What are we talking this? We should have stopped ages ago.
No, it's good to hear two regular blokes just talking about it. As well, it's not like we're trying to tell people how to.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the solution, guys.
No, but let's do that.
Yeah. I've been meaning to hit him up. Talking to Sam, who runs Impact Policy podcast.
Yep.
Sammy's like, I got to get him on, mate. Can you hook me up? I got to get him on.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck. He's going to have a long list of people lining up to get him on the show.
Well, he's had, like last week was Heckers, at least 10 interviews.
So he was on the news again last night.
Yeah, and it's just right now it's going to be busy. And this is a guy who flies, I don't know, a dozen times in a year, or some of them are big international commitments where he goes for 3 weeks over to go talk to the UN.
Ah, right, yeah.
And he's talking to fucking hundreds of world leaders and it used to, a lot of his work in the past has got to do with sex crimes with children.
Yep.
And, dealing with those really dark stuff that's why he trains so hard. He's just like
exercising demons.
Yeah. It's the type of work that just, he's really good at coexisting with that type of work that would otherwise break a lot of other people, but it doesn't come without damage, and he comes in here, he trains hard and he just wants to be in his body.
Yeah.
Because, he's, he was just over with Interpol. He's done a lot of work with Interpol for the child sex trafficking rings and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah, gnarly. But he's always been working with, violence against partners or partner
domestic
violence.
abuse.
Yeah. He
right.
calls it partner violence or something like that.
Okay.
His base has been in that a lot, but he's just been working with the children-related things. But obviously, this is really important. But yeah, he's like in and out of the country doing these huge talks and working with big people. And, we need to get him on the biggest podcast, biggest interview.
It's only right that he gets his moment.
That's right.
In the spotlight. That is the Jungle Brothers podcast.